Growing up in a big Italian family, wine was always on the table, and we drank wine without even really thinking about it. Wine was just a part of life. My great-grandfather, my grandfather, all of my uncles made wine at home. Everyone had a setup in their garage. It would just get moved from household to household. Making wine with the family, it was a big event. What I learned later was that my great-grandmother was really the director of winemaking, and she's the one who told my great-grandfather when it was time to pick, when it was time to press. Pretty much everything he did was by her direction. Whenever a child was born, the wine that was made at home in that year was called the birth wine. And she would fill a 1-gallon jug with that wine that was made in that year, and she would handwrite a label and put the label on it. And the tradition was that that wine would get opened at the rehearsal dinner for that kid's wedding. I still have my jug. We actually included it in our wedding ceremony with my grandfather and my godfather. It was really special. Of all of the influences in my life, thus far, my family is far and away the biggest influence on who I am today. The dynamic with my dad was really special. He was kind of like my coach. My dad never gave me the message or the impression that there was a difference between what girls could do and what boys could do. You know, I was in my 20s when he passed away. We lost him fairly young, but whenever I've come up against a serious brick wall and been told, no, that's not going to happen, and I can break through it and I can get there, I can feel my dad standing right next to me and said, you got the guy. Uncle Dan, or Uncle Danny as I called him when I was a kid, Uncle Dan was my dad's younger brother. He and my dad were really, really close, and so we spent a lot of time together. Uncle Dan is really special to me. He's the closest thing to my dad that I have. The early part of my career was really in the trenches. I was in the cellar. I was a cellar rat, hauling hoses, cleaning tanks, operating heavy equipment. I worked my way up. I was working in Sonoma in the lab. I'd been there for a couple of years and was feeling kind of itchy to move on to the next thing and kind of keep advancing. Thinking back on it, I should have been scared to death. A woman working in a winery in a leadership role, so we're talking about, you know, the 1990s. It was challenging. I would now be managing the crew that did the work in the cellar. They were all older than I am. They were all taller than I am. They were all men. I felt like, you know, I wasn't respected the same. At that time in my life and in my career, I just figured, well, this is the task ahead of me. This is how it's going to work. And that's what I just got at it. Was given the opportunity to go abroad for a couple of harvests to Chile. Their winemaker had come and worked with me for a season, and then I got to go down and work with her for a season. And this woman, this Chilean woman, reminded me of my grandmother. She just struck me as so confident and fearless and sure of herself. It kind of inspired me to say, okay, well, I don't have to roll with it. I can stand up to it. I was in Sonoma for over 20 years and just decided it was time to do something completely different. I ended up moving to Washington State and making wine in Washington. In a way, this was my opportunity to prove myself. Felt like I'd kind of gotten into a rut. There was even rumbling in the very back of my mind, do I really want to do this anymore? I realized at some point, this isn't as hard as it used to be. I had done a lot of talking with other women in the industry, and then it was like after that, it occurred to me that, wait a minute, it's because I was a girl. Had I known that that's what I was up against at the time, I may not have been as successful in maneuvering my way through it. What I realized is, like, it didn't matter what anybody else thought. I do know what I'm doing. This is exciting, and this is what I want to keep doing. It just reawakened me and got me excited again. I was making wines that the fruit was completely different, and so the wines are going to be completely different, but these are wines that I was like, from the get-go, I was like, holy moly, these are really good. Anytime we can surprise ourselves, you know, in a delightful way, it's a great thing in life. 5 years was enough. The winters are really tough there, so we came back home and went from there. Now, I've made wine in a lot of different places in the world. I've made a lot of different wines. And I'm really, really grateful to be working with bread and butter and making these wines, because it reminds me of those evenings back at the family table where we're drinking wine that we like. Nobody's having to think about it. Wine doesn't have to be complicated, because really a good wine is the wine you like. I'm proud of who I've become. I think I've made my dad proud, and that makes me proud. I'm really proud of the wines that I've made. I'm proud of the fact that I've had some sort of positive impact on people's lives. We're here all together so that we can have influences and impacts on each other. I want to be remembered as somebody who went through life helping people feel better about themselves, about their place in life. And if they remember that I put a good glass of wine on their table, that would be great too.